Fire department, second largest fire department in the country, municipal fire department. We started in 1924, and we've been doing urban interface firefighting ever since. And it doesn't matter whether we use the term I-zone, interface, or urban intermix. We've been doing it. You know, Southern California, people might have a perception that this is a flat country with flat beaches. But we have some of the most rugged terrain in Los Angeles County, Orange County, Ventura County that you'll see anywhere. Extremely steep, rugged terrain. And wherever we don't have usually a federal agency, such as a federal or state agency like a national park or a forest or state park, folks tend to get as close to those wilderness areas and build structures. So they build them in the worst terrain, steep terrain. They will build them in bottom of drainages or draws. They'll build them in the bottom of narrow canyons. And they build them what we call mid-slope on the side of a slope. They'll go in there and build a roadway, and they'll hang a house out there. They even have some of them hanging on stilts. So all of these things, the terrain, the heavy fuel, and then the type of construction plays against us. What happened in Southern California, if we go way back into the 20s and 30s, people would buy property out in the wilderness and get a road to it, no rules, no regs, so we'd have very narrow roads. So we have those to deal with. Now as time progressed and we started burning down a lot of homes, then we created new ordinances. And so the homes that are built, new homes now that are built pretty safe in the interface. They require green belts, safe construction, and so forth. But we have to keep dealing with these ones that were built prior to 1960. I believe the Bel Air fire in Los Angeles City, that's when the real ordinances where they burned 450 homes down in 8 hours. They have zero what we call non-native or ornamental vegetation when they first build it. But then they plant all these different burnable plants around their structure. And then they don't trim them. So these ornamental vegetations, they start growing up all over it and they get bigger and bigger. They don't trim them. And that ornamental vegetation is what's causing us to burn down these structures. Dr. Cohen at the research center, Jack Cohen, he's made a study of that, and you know, it's not direct flame impingement that's burning most of them down. It's flying, burning embers, and the fires are starting this big, and then they get in that ornamental vegetation or the stuff we have around our homes. And that, by stuff, I'm really talking junk. And ember gets in there and takes off, and that's what's burning most of these homes down.
As JP will tell you, the wildland-urban interface problem is no longer isolated to Southern California. In 2007, over 5,300 structures were destroyed by wildland fires alone. Nearly 3,000 of those were primary residences. Like the rest of the fire statistics, these numbers seem to be increasing over time in all parts of the country. Florida, for example, is one of the fastest growing states, and people continue to build in or adjacent to wildland fuels. Minnesota, Montana, and New Jersey have all had homes destroyed in recent years. Many areas of the country are just now starting down the same road California went down 40 to 50 years ago.
Yes, I've been doing training programs, Colorado, a lot of them in Montana, Idaho, throughout California, and it's going crazy in all of these states. And the things that we went through in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, this is what other states are doing. And a lot of these states they don't like to write new regulations, new ordinances, and so there's very little controls put on them. So you'll go to, just as a for instance, Montana. They have very few regulations there. So people are putting these homes out there in heavy timber where there's no way you can defend some of these structures. So, and again, the problem increases every year, because even when out in the wilderness, they come in and they plant non-native plants around their houses, and that contributes to the ornamental vegetation. And that's what's lighting these homes up. So, oh yeah, it's growing. I'm very familiar with Western United States, but I think it's probably happening all over the country. Let's just take where I'm very familiar with, Montana. They'll have housing developments coming in there, and they require to have wood shank roofs. Now, I mean, you know, speaking bluntly, that's just stupid. So that would be the first thing. Let's make these homes to where they at least have a chance. Then they got to get the defensible space. And how much is defensible space around a structure? The forest national agencies, the federal agencies require, if you have leased land within the forest, they require 30 foot of clearance. As you and I both know, 30 foot of clearance is nothing. CAL FIRE used to require 60 feet of clearance. They now are up to 100 feet. LA City and Los Angeles County, because we've been stung so many times, we go minimum of 100, and on north aspect 200 feet, or wherever the inspector thinks they need 200 feet. So, but many of the western United States, they have no brush ordinances to require the homeowner to do it.
JP has been presenting training classes since 1970, and in doing so, he has narrowed down what he thinks are the most important aspects of staying safe when protecting structures. His first concern is safety zones.
Okay, so we have this problem now that's basically all across the country. Firefighters, you know, they can get into this. On our siege here in Southern California, we had fire engines here from Maine, from all over the United States. So it doesn't matter where you are, you can get involved in an interface fire. So what can we teach them? Well, here's the change we've made in Southern California since 1996, when we had the burn over on the Calabasas incident where we burned 3 firefighters, one critically, Bill Jensen from the city of Glendale. We started to make a change on when we would commit to a structure. And here's what it is. We will not commit to a structure to protect it unless we have a safety zone for our apparatus and our people. And to define safety zone for our apparatus, we're not going to change the color of the rig. We're not going to bring a rig back with drooping clearance lights, turn signals, a cracked windshield. In other words, we're not going to damage that rig. So we need adequate space to protect that apparatus, and then we have to have 2 safety zones for our firefighters. If the rig, the engine, has a safety zone out in the street or the driveway, then consequently firefighters would be safe there also. Then we want a second one. And generally speaking, behind the structure, away from the approaching fire, will be a second safety zone. Now, I want to clarify what I just said. I did not say inside of the structure is to be considered a safety zone. Inside of the structure can be a survival zone. The big thing, if you don't have a safety zone for your apparatus and your people, we're not going to commit.
JP taught us that when you are assigned to do structure triage, you need to classify each structure in one of 4 classes. This classification will depend on your assessment of LCES and your estimated fire behavior. You may want to reference the material in your student workbook.
Is we've come up with our own classification, because many of the books have different classifications of you know, how we class homes, whether they're workable or not workable. And to be honest with you, I can't find a universal language. So I created my own, and this is my I have 4 classes of homes. The first 2 will have LCES available, okay? And by, we all know Paul Gleason started LCES. We're using LCES as our basis, whether we're going to commit to a structure to protect it or not. And the safety zone for the apparatus and people is going to be number 1. Okay. Once we've done that, we're going to make a fire behavior prediction. Now, once we've done that, and we figure we have a safety zone for our apparatus and our people, we made a fire behavior prediction to quantify that, okay, yeah, we are safe here, to verify. Now, we're going to come into these 4 classifications of structures. The first one is what I call, LCES is available, but it's a standalone structure. And by standalone, I mean this. Either the homeowner is there to protect it, or patrol status. We do not have to have a fire apparatus there, but homeowner, or we go by and occasionally check this. Now, in the newer homes out in the interface, you will find what I call standalone structures, quite a few of them. Okay, the next one is LCES is available. In other words, the house is defendable, but fire resource has to be there to protect that house. but it has to have the safety zone for the apparatus and the people. The third class, LCES, is not available. Doesn't have a safety zone for the apparatus or the people, but we can prep it and go. Now, when I say prep, I don't mean come in and do a lot of brush cutting. We're not going to, if the homeowner hadn't done completed his brush clearance, we're not going to go in and start cutting brush, limbing up trees, etc. I'm talking about they've left their lawn furniture out on the patio, which is a great host for a fire. We're going to do that kind of thing. Or if we have a capability to put some sort of foam down, we will do that. Now, in some of the western United States, they're using portable sprinklers. I'm personally not a fan of portable sprinklers. I'm not a fan of wrapping these homes with aluminum. That's just my view. If I had a historical structure, I might do that. So prep and go. The key on that is the go. You've got to have time to prep it, and then when the fire is coming, you go to a safety zone, okay? So that's the third type. No LCES available. Prep and go. The fourth, there is no LCES. There is no safety zone for our apparatus or our people. And some agencies are using the term loser. I don't like loser, but that's in reality what it is. I call it a drive-by. We're just going to drive by it. There's no safety zone for us. We do not have to risk our life, if we don't have that safety zone, to protect that structure. But firefighters across the country, I want you to remember, there are many elderly people in some of these interface areas. Some of them can't hear. There are non-ambulatory people in some of these, can't get out. And in today's market, all across the country, we have what we call latchkey children. Both mom and dad are working. Kids come home 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Mom and dad don't get home till 5 or 6. Those kids have been instructed not to open that door for anybody. Firefighters, we're anybody. So if you're doing a drive-by, doesn't look like anybody's home on an interface house, but are there kids there? You got to go beat on the door and find out if anybody's home. Now, that's all based on a rescue drive-by. I'm calling that a rescue drive-by because first we got to make sure that there's nobody there. That's all based on you've got enough time to do it. If it's a just-in-time service and the fire's licking and you don't have a time to do that, then you got to drive by.
In your student workbook, you will also find the LCES flowchart that JP developed. Please follow along as JP talks about the various elements. Compare his flowchart to how you currently handle structure protection assignments.
We've developed a one-page flowchart to do structure protection / triage, and I believe you have a copy of that in front of you. The first thing you'll notice that across the top I have structure protection. I would like to change our terminology, firefighters. If you get an assignment to do structure protection, what's your boss, whether it's a fire chief or a fire management officer or a state fire chief or the volunteer fire chief, and he gives you an assignment to go up and do structure protection. His intent, commander's intent, is that you will go up and triage that structure and make sure that you can commit to it, providing you have LCES available to you, combined with a fire behavior prediction. So I like the term triage because that's telling you you're going to go do that if it's safe to do it. If it's not safe to do it, we're going to drive by it and find a structure that we can safely protect. So triage. Okay, now we're going to the next item on there is your LCES items. And the safety zone for the apparatus and the people is your first priority. Okay, so now we have a safety zone for our apparatus. Now we're going to find an additional safety zone. Like I said earlier, generally speaking, behind the structure is an area of safety zone, okay? Now we're going to post a lookout. I like to train the apparatus engineer. He is the official lookout for your group on structure protection. But train everybody that they're a lookout. And I like to say that most captains in this country wear a red helmet. And I'd like you to think of that red helmet as a beacon that you will see at the airport. And that needs to be on a swivel, looking around constantly for spot fires, things happening, changing conditions. Have that head on a swivel And that's, you know, a few years ago they come out